All right, we're jumping right into what is, I would argue, the most important chapter in your entire EMT textbook: workforce safety and wellness. And why is it so important? Well, it's pretty simple. If you can't keep yourself safe, you can't help anybody else. So let's dive in. Okay, first things first, let's start with a foundational question. And I mean foundational because you are absolutely going to be tested on this, both on your exam and out on the street. On any given call, who is an EMT's single most important patient? Just think about that for a second. Is it the person who dialed 911? Or maybe the sickest person you find when you get there? The answer is always you. That's right. Your own personal safety and well-being are the absolute bedrock of your ability to do this job. I mean, think about it. If you get hurt, or you get sick, or you're compromised in any way, you can't help your patient. Even worse, you've just become another patient, which makes the whole situation a lot more complicated for everyone else on scene. So, to help all of this really stick, we're going to frame this entire idea around what I call the 3 shields of EMT safety. Just think of them as 3 layers of protection that you're going to carry with you for your entire career: your internal shield, your external shield, and your situational shield. If you can master these, you're building the foundation for a long, healthy, and resilient career in EMS. All right, let's start with the first one, the internal shield. This is all about your personal wellness. This is the protection that you build from the inside out, the stuff that makes you physically and mentally resilient long before the tones ever even drop for a call. Now, the key word here is resilience. So what does that actually mean? Well, your textbook defines it as your capacity to cope with and recover from distress. And I want you to focus on that word capacity. This is huge. It means resilience isn't something you're just born with. It's a skill you can build. It's a shield you can literally make stronger through simple, deliberate practices, like using controlled breathing exercises to manage stress when things get intense. And a huge part of building that resilience is knowing the difference between the 2 types of stress you're going to face. First, you've got eustress. That's the good kind of stress. You know, that adrenaline rush on a really big call that makes you super focused? That's eustress. But then you've got distress. That's the negative kind, the one that leads to anxiety and eventually burnout. Knowing the difference between these 2 is absolutely crucial, not just for your exams, but for your own mental health. So the big question is, how do you actually strengthen that internal shield? Well, the textbook gives us some really clear strategies. First, maintaining a well-balanced diet to actually fuel your body for the job. Next, getting regular exercise. And they're specific here. We're talking about aiming for 150 minutes a week of moderate to vigorous activity. And finally, actively working on your relationships with family and friends. And look, these aren't just nice suggestions. You have to think of them as core functions of your job. But out of all those strategies, what's the single most important one? It's sleep. Plain and simple. The recommendation is totally non-negotiable: 7 to 9 hours a night. Look, in EMS, sleep deprivation isn't some badge of honor. It's a direct, documented link to medical errors and, yes, ambulance crashes. That number you see, 7 to 9 hours, that's your number 1 defense against fatigue. Okay, on to our second layer of protection: the external shield. Now we're talking about infection control. This is all about protecting you from those invisible threats you're going to run into on pretty much every single call. And the guiding principle for this entire shield is something called standard precautions. This is a core concept backed by the CDC, and it's really a mindset. It means you have to assume that every single person you encounter is potentially infectious. And no, this isn't about being paranoid. It's about being a professional. This concept is the why behind every single pair of gloves you'll ever put on. Now, to use that shield the right way, you've got to know what you're trying to block. The source material breaks it down into 5 main routes of transmission. You've got direct contact, indirect contact, and airborne transmission. Those are the big ones. But you also need to know about the less common ones, which are still totally testable, by the way: foodborne and vector-borne routes. All right, now this right here is a hands-on, testable skill that you absolutely cannot mess up: how to take off your gloves properly. So listen up. Step 1, you pinch the palm of one glove and peel it off, making sure it turns inside out. Step 2, you take that dirty glove and ball it up in the palm of your hand that's still gloved. Step 3, you slide 2 clean fingers from your ungloved hand under the cuff of the glove that's still on. And this is key: don't touch the outside. Step 4, just peel that second glove off, turning it inside out over the first one. Now you've got a neat little contained bag ready for disposal. And please remember this: Even if you do that glove removal technique perfectly, your final line of defense is always the same thing: washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. It is, without a doubt, the simplest and most effective way to stop disease transmission in its tracks. Okay, that brings us to our third and final shield, the situational shield. This one is all about scene safety. It's about maintaining constant awareness of what's happening around you so you can protect yourself from the visible threats in your environment. All right, let's do a quick, rapid-fire review of some key scene safety rules. First up, Hazmat. You see a placard, you suspect there's a spill. The rule couldn't be simpler. You stay uphill and you stay upwind. That's it. You let the specialists handle the rest. Next on the list, downed power lines. If you see them, the scene is not safe. Period. The danger zone is massive. We're talking at least one full span between two utility poles. You do not go in there until the power company themselves gives the all clear. Okay, what about vehicle crashes? Where do you park the ambulance? The rule of thumb is at least 100 feet away. Why? Because that distance protects your crew, your rig, and the whole scene from passing traffic and any other hazards. And finally, let's talk about scenes with potential violence. You absolutely have to know the difference between these two words. Concealment just hides you. Think of a bush or a regular car door. But cover actually protects you from things being thrown or fired. We're talking about a concrete barrier or the engine block of a truck. Your life can literally depend on knowing the difference. Always, always prioritize cover. So here's the crucial takeaway. These three shields, the internal, the external, and the situational, they don't work by themselves. They're a complete system, all working together to build a resilient responder. You see, your internal wellness shield gives you the mental clarity to use your situational shield effectively, and your external shield, infection control, keeps you safe while you're operating inside that scene. It's all connected. And really, this all brings us back to the core message from the textbook. This quote just says it all perfectly. Caring for yourself, physically, mentally, and emotionally, isn't a selfish act. It's a fundamental professional obligation. In fact, it's the absolute prerequisite before you can even think about caring for anyone else. And let's be really clear about why this is so critical. This job is tough. I mean, studies have shown that a staggering 84% of first responders have experienced a traumatic event while on the job. The stressors you're going to face are very, very real, and just pretending they don't exist, that's not a strategy for survival. So, I want you to remember this. Building these shields isn't about trying to be invincible. You're not Superman. It's about being prepared. It's about looking at the real risks of this job, acknowledging them, and then taking smart, deliberate steps to manage them every single day you put on the uniform. And that really just leaves us with one final, very personal question. You have the strategies now. You know what the shields are. So, what's your plan? How are you personally going to build and maintain these shields so that you can take care of yourself and be ready to take care of others?